How do you know if a lender is giving you accurate information
We
or the closest to accurate information, right? How do you
so
know?
we live in a society right now where there are a ton of lenders out there and lending institutions and lending programs that are really trying to get your piece of the pie, right? Their piece of the pie from you. And so they make it as easy as possible. Just click on our, website, go to our website, go click on this app. In minutes, you'll know what you can afford.
Instant gratification.
Absolutely. You
We're
have
not
no.
going to even ask you any questions or make you do any work. We're just willing. We like you so much that we're going to give you hundreds of thousands of dollars and just kind of, have a handshake that you're going to pay us back.
Yes, exactly. We spend a lot of time making sure that these transactions go as smoothly as possible. But there's the big as possible. You should not and you cannot buy several $100,000 worth of assets without a little bit of work. And so what we wanted to kind of talk about is not all lenders and lending institutions are created equal. So some of the things, and the reason we want to start talking about this is we're starting to see some, well, there's always sprinkled out, but right now because interest rates are going up, and that seems to be the biggest concern of a lot of potential buyers out there. You're seeing kind of too good to be true rates out there on some institutions. And of course, when you're talking to, somebody who might be from your bank or one of our mortgage brokers or something like that, and they're giving you one amount, but you're seeing, because somehow all these Googles and all that stuff know. So you're now starting to get on social media, all the directed information, knowing somehow that you're looking for a loan.
You said to your partner, maybe we should buy a house, and Google and Facebook heard you.
Absolutely. So now you're getting all these targeted ads, and the numbers you're seeing are a lot better, maybe a whole point less than what everybody else is talking about. So why shouldn't you jump on top of that? And we're trying to today talk about kind of what are normal expenses, what are expenses to be worried about, because it is too good to be true. So there is always, when you're going to be looking for a loan, there is always going to be an application fee. But again, these are things that you can kind of, comparison shop. But a lot of these things are often about the same.
We should say upfront, because I've seen this in Facebook groups, and I think we need to, Nicole, we need to set the record straight that we get nothing for referring lenders. Matter of fact, it's illegal for them to give us, a little something. The only thing we get is a great experience for our clients, knowing that they're going to get to the closing table and that everything is going to go super smoothly. So sometimes people are suspicious of who their realtor refers. And what you need to understand about that is we do this a couple of hundred times, and we have experience with dozens of lenders. So, the lenders that we work with, sometimes we can grab their hand and drag them to the closing table. Sometimes it's a really smooth process. We know who's going to do a good job for you and who isn't. So that's the only reason we ever refer people. And we know that our lenders are honest. We'll get into that a little bit. And that their fees are very competitive.
And that's, that goes across the board for anybody because we just were somewhere yesterday and somebody was talking about agents getting kickbacks for this and that. And we're like, what? No, we choose who makes the most sense, who we at the end of the day can be very happy to tell our clients about. And that's across the board, lenders, attorneys, plumbers, all that. So, we do our best for our clients, not for our pocketbook.
Oh gosh, no, Nicole, we do not get it.
Not at all.
We do not get kickbacks.
No kickbacks.
We get so much less money than people think we do overall.
Right. We're just rolling in it all over the place, right, Ruth? All right. So there is an application fee. That's just to kind of get the ball rolling. It's usually less than $500. Of course, these numbers can always change because the industry, changes. Things like appraisals and stuff have jumped super high over the last few years just because kind of supply and demand. But right now we're looking at
Nicole, a lot of people assume that. And it's funny because we assume, and then we hear these things and we go, whoa, wait a minute, maybe we better tell people how it really is. Yeah, there's a law called RESPA that makes it so that we cannot get anything from people who are party to the transaction.
Right. Maybe a coffee every once in a while.
Yeah. But we usually buy them coffee too. So really.
Right. And then there is going to be a loan origination fee. So again, those are usually, depending on the type of loan you're getting, between 0.5% and 1%. So again, those are, when you're seeing the interest rates a little too good to be true, you might have to start looking at what is the application. Is the application fee $2,000? Is the loan origination 2 or 3%? Is it much, much higher to kind of make that money back?
It's like that old CarMax commercial where you had that big long balloon and you squeeze one side of the balloon and the other side blows up, right?
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. Because, they're not going to be taking an entire point or point and a half than everybody else is charging over the course of a 30-year, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 loan. Be like, that's cool, because that's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. So they would like to make their money. And then you do have, again, on certain types of loans, the PMI, private mortgage insurance, and that usually, if it usually comes to play if there's less than 20% down on a either conventional or FHA loan, a non-VA loan. You usually have the private mortgage insurance, and that can kind of vary too, anywhere between like $30 to $70 a month per $100,000. So again, that's a wide range, but that might be something to also look into when trying to determine these, rates. Now, even this week, I've talked to a couple lenders this week, and prices, interest rates did go, had a small little dip this week, but it could be next week. It could be, a month from now, we'll see another shift one way or another, but they're always kind of going up and down. So again, kind of taking a risk on one of these kind of fly-by-night potential places, just for that really trendy, appealing number. There's more to that. And Ruth's going to kind of tell us some of the horror stories of recent and past experiences.
Yeah. So one of our favorite things to do is tell you real things that happened. Cole, it depends on the type of the loan, whether you can pay off the PMI or get rid of it. So most of the time with conventional loans, when the PMI get removed, they usually have a built-in time that it comes off automatically, and that's going to be in the bank's favor. So you want to keep track of what's going on with your house value. And with FHA, you can no longer get rid of the mortgage insurance, but there is a possibility of completing a conventional loan at some point. That might be the best thing for you. The best thing to do is, again, have a trusted lender, not the lender that you use once, not the lender of the week, but really let you know when it's a good time to refinance, who's going to be proactive in giving you this kind of information, because many lenders are happy to let that PMI go as long as they can take it. And that's, again, one of those times when it's better, we think, to work with someone who you can have a personal relationship with. And, there's a lot of great lenders who work for banks. And we've worked with some that we love and who did a great job. But just because that person on the very front end, So as much as we love them, they might not be the person who has any control over you, you know. I think you're frozen on my side.
I was going to say you keep freezing on mine.
Oh, I wonder, are we freezing on the public side, either of us or both of us? Oh, we do keep freezing.
Uh-oh. Both or Ruth or Danielle? Ooh, Ruth.
Oh.
Okay. So you might want to repeat a little bit of that.
Yes. So I said that if you're working with a bank, especially a big bank, you might love the person that you start working with. And just know that the way their systems are structured, that person usually falls off after the first few conversations. And then you're dealing with somebody in New York who goes home at 4:00 our time. So you might not be able to build that long-term relationship as much as you might like that person. We have people we've worked with at banks that we really like and enjoy working with and do a good job. It's just the exception rather than the rule. So horror stories I've got. So when, I hate to use this word, but when a lender doesn't tell you the truth or tell your realtor the truth or tell the realtor on the other side the truth, and they know it's not the truth, there's a word for that. So we don't want to be too negative on this show, but there are lenders who walk around with their pants on fire. Let's put it that way. We have had cases where once under contract, where Danielle and I both vet lenders. We call them, we talk to them, we make sure that they've done their homework. We have a series of questions that we ask every single lender. Sometimes when we've got 20 offers on a property, that can take a long time, but that's what we do. We want to make sure as much as possible that they know what they're looking at. When we get a pre-approval, that could be something that somebody typed up after a 5-minute conversation. It could be the result of a fill in the blank form. It runs the gamut. And a seller is going to take their house off the market, say no to other possibilities based on what they're being presented with. So we have had lenders who halfway through the process just say, whoops, this person can't qualify.
Mm-hmm.
What? Yeah, their credit is 540. You didn't pull credit? We had a case where the stated income was partially a good part, but based on bonuses. Well, lenders don't consider bonuses to be compensation because you can't count on it. Maybe you did a crappy job this year. Maybe because you're moving, you're not working so hard as you did last year. And that could be, $10, $15, $20,000 in income that you got once that you're not going to get again. Lenders don't count that. We had a case where we found that out days before closing. So buyers and sellers had their households on trucks. Everybody was ready to move. Kids had been picking out their rooms. And we found out that it wasn't going to happen. That is devastating. It's horrible. And unfortunately, we have to take the word of people. Danielle, what was the one that you got? Oh, it was a couple of transactions away from us.
So it was a domino, which we will be, I think, talking about next week, what dominoes mean, because suddenly that's very relevant again in this market. But yeah, it was a transaction that we were not directly part of, but one step away. And they went under contract, and they got some, the agent got a little bit of conflicting information. So she was kind of trying to figure it out. She called the other agent. The other agent didn't have any answers. So she called the lender of the buyers for her seller's home. And when she got on the phone with the lender starts going, well, I told them this was going to be iffy anyway. Their credit score was borderline to probably, if they did a couple things, then they'd hit what they needed to do. So this lender, they were not qualified at all, had told the agent, oh yeah, they'll get the, they can get the loan. And then a week later was like, oh, well, they really can't get the loan, but I thought they might do the work to get it. So that he filled out a pre-approval, sent it out saying that his company could do it. He could do that work. His buyers got under contract and had no ability to buy a house, any house, not even just that house. Their credit score was far too low. He knew it and still proceeded to let everybody believe that in a couple weeks, because it kept getting extended. That was the other thing.
That's the other thing. They keep you on a string. So anytime we see an extension, sometimes buyers and sellers and everybody else is like, it's an extension, no big deal. When we see an extension, so our lenders get extensions. They don't need them. They don't ask for them. They don't get them. They do their work on time. They hit their deadlines. And if you've got your stuff on a truck, it's going to come off that truck into your new house, not go back into your old house.
Correct.
So when we see extensions, to us, that is a huge red flag. And this is the kind of thing that happens. They're just dragging on and stringing everyone along. I have asked to never really, none of our good lenders can answer this because they don't work for these kinds of companies, but I'm pretty sure that what's happening in the background is there's some kind of a quota that someone's trying to hit. So either they have to write so many pre-approvals or they have to get so many loan applications, because guess what happens during that time? A loan application is made. And what happens with a loan application, Danielle?
We were just talking about the fees.
There are fees.
Several $100s.
So they get paid for to a lender who knows already that there's no way that this is going to happen. So this is another thing that realtors do. We protect you from shady lenders. With our sellers, it's difficult because it's not our lender. And sometimes our buyers, choose a lender that isn't someone we know well enough to do this. We can't really do anything about that other than, encourage them to use ours. But yes, we have those horror stories just scratch the surface. We've had people who say that they don't have a contingency. They don't have to sell their house, and they do. What was the one we just heard yesterday? Oh, it was a buyer who was in some program that we're not familiar with at all.
Oh, yes.
Where
yes.
It was a conventional loan because the actual buyer was a bank
corporation
or something.
It was like a corporation or something.
Entity.
Right.
But the buyer couldn't qualify for anything, really. And then that wasn't going to be discovered until underwriting was taking place a few weeks into the contract.
And then they were going to tell everybody it was an FHA loan.
Right. And that the buyer wasn't the buyer.
Correct.
So it sounds like fraud to me, but apparently there's some loopholes. And so, yeah, there are a lot of nightmare situations that people unfortunately get into. And it's funny because lending is really, really regulated in so many ways, but not in this way. And we think there ought to be consequences, because there aren't, and people should lose their license for doing these sorts of things. It doesn't seem to happen. Presumably they eventually get washed out of the system because they're terrible,
right?
And probably can't support themselves, but it takes too long and people get hurt. So yes, Nicole, absolutely talk to your realtor. And the other thing is that local traditions vary as far as our transactions go. So we have lenders, of course, that are licensed in multiple states, but it happens pretty often that a lender is licensed in a state but doesn't really take the time to learn how that state works. So we get out-of-state lenders who ask for things that we don't do. We don't have those things. We can't give you that.
That reminds me of another horror story. Remember years back, I had a buyer for one of my listings, and we got well into the process. I mean, like a week away, they had a national lender, and the national lender gave the pre-approval and approval and went through the whole thing based on one of the tax payments instead of both, because they weren't. They didn't look at the taxes and go, that looks kind of low for that area.
They saw $2,000 and they said, that sounds like property taxes to us. And they didn't look at what state they were in.
Correct. It was like $4,000 or $5,000. And you're like, good to go. And then it was like, no, taxes are about $9,000. And they're like, oh, no, they can't get this loan anymore. And it was, it was 100% the loan officer's fault for not understanding local enough customs and what's going on locally.
Yeah. And Nicole, there's so many things that you can't know. Why would you know? So that's why people have to count on us. And that's why, there's realtors who are cheaper than me and Danielle. There are realtors who are more aggressive than me and Danielle and will,
burn every bridge to get you that
into your life. But unless they really have the experience of going through so many of these situations, that most of which we've been able to remedy, they don't know what they don't know, and they don't know how to advise you. So you've got a good realtor. Yes, you fired your first one. I remember you saying that, and why you left us, of course. But there's so many of these things going on in the background. That's why we love this little Friday chat. I think we get to tell things that, and we get to talk about it when we're not in a transaction, when there's not 1,000 other things that are coming at you that could be so overwhelming. So, so this is why, again, your referrals are really important to us, because without us working in your friend's best interest, they could end up with one of these nightmare situations. So, we care, and that's obviously really important to us, but our lenders care. They care about whether you close or not. So they're not going to, when I was telling Karina Bross about a clear to close that I hadn't gotten for a transaction that was supposed to close like the next day, which of course we know is against the law. She just said, I wouldn't be able to sleep. I don't know how they could sleep. And that's really the question. I have had so many situations where people have been so tremendously inconvenienced. I mean, Nicole, moving is not easy, right? And so the idea that you could be all ready to go, and then somebody says, whoa, we're going to need a few more days. That's not inconveniencing you by a couple of days. You have your life on a truck. You're probably looking at a temporary, stay somewhere. Extending is not a simple thing.
Well, that just reminds me, I met Mark when I found out, after all my boxes were packed, for the first home I was supposed to buy in Illinois, and found out my husband and I were never eligible for that loan. The lender had no idea. We were very honest with everything. They looked about all of our stuff and said, you're good to go. And we waited and waited and waited and went through the whole process. and found out literally the night before we were supposed to close that we were never going to close. And so our awesome attorney referred Mark to us, and Mark tried his hardest, and he's like, sorry, I can't. It's a hard thing that
you had some things that you needed to fix first.
It was just time. It was time. Literally, there just was not enough time that went by, and it was across the board. And that's an easy thing that lender should have known. There was not time. I needed a couple extra months. And so Mark worked with us the whole time and has helped us, on a ton of transactions. So, and
Mark, give him a plug.
Mark Millisong in Atlanta. So it's one of those things where it's like, I'm sitting here just and more and more, are happening and reminding me of these past transactions we've done. And as you said, Karina, Mark, we have a couple other lenders, Eric and Autumn. They've never, ever dropped the ball for us. And so, that's really, really important, I think, to have those type of partners that will always have our clients' backs.
And you know what? There are people who would have gone to Mark and that he would have said, can't do it. You're going to have to wait. And they would say, oh, I don't like that answer. And then they go to Bozo and he says, yes, let's go.
Yeah.
So don't do that. Don't think that the good lender is lying to you when they tell you that they can't do something.
That they just don't want your business.
Yeah. They're just, got enough. They're good. They are telling you the truth. And if you go find another answer, you are very likely to get burned down the road.
Absolutely. Cookie. Bozo and Cookie. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And if you don't know what we're talking about, you're young.
Yeah.
Or at least younger than us. So, all right. Well,
anyone who doesn't know who Bozo and Cookie are. I mean, we'll help you buy a house, but other than that.
Absolutely. So, well, that was a long one, but a very important one.
Yeah. So, vet your lenders, check with your realtor. They don't have a stake in who your lender is other than you're going to get great service and you're going to get to closing.
Absolutely. And that's what's important.
Thanks so much. Thanks, Nicole, again, for always being so participatory. We love that. And if anyone else is shy, just look at the shining example that Nicole says and ask us some questions and we'll answer you.
Until next week.
See you next week. Ruth Sheehan
and Danielle Tully
of eXp Realty.
All right. Bye-bye.